All right. Welcome to Freethinker Radio. I'm Mike. I'm here with Johnny in the studio. Derrick should be joining us shortly. I know he was dealing with some technical difficulties related to a vehicle. But yeah, we're glad to be here on KPFT Houston, 90.1 FM. Thanks for listening in. We got a lot of good stuff. We were just listening to recent releases by Amber Eye and Banshee. 50th Floor by Amber Eye and Metamorphosis by Banshee. So that was some good stuff. We got a lot more music coming up throughout this show. I want to remind you, if you do like the music, don't forget the radio station. Like, love, follow, support, share on all the social networks, and of course find Freethinker Radio on Facebook, where you can message us, you can send us music, you can talk to us about events, and oh goodness, I don't know. We're gonna have to find out here what's going on. Yeah, we're testing some equipment. I think it's going good. Are we happy, Johnny?
Yes, Johnny's
awesome.
Happy.
Nice. How do we have our interviewee, Mr.
Yes,
Fegan?
we do. There's tons of stuff going on this week, and we have a festival going on tomorrow. I'm going to bring on my friend Kevin to talk about it. And hello, Kevin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. How you doing, man?
How's it going, brother? So you have an event going on tomorrow. Why don't you tell our listeners about it?
Oh, well, yeah. So I've only been booking shows, I guess, for about like 6 or 7 months now, but I'm really pleased to announce that I'm hosting my first festival tomorrow at White Swan, starting from 3 to basically about midnight or something. Really the biggest thing about it is that I wanted to book a festival with a lot of music, all-day activity. It's free for the general public, so anyone can come out and come support. There'll be plenty of art, plenty of music, just a bunch of positivity and a bunch of art and stuff. So I really would like if people could come out and give us a check out. Check all the bands out tomorrow.
That's awesome. Why don't you tell us about your band and tell us about a couple of other acts that people can check out, expect to see here. And you said there's gonna be food. What kind of food?
Food.
So we are going to be barbecuing at the event. We're just it's really a community type of ordeal. Everything's going to be free. If you do bring something, obviously it's going to be cooked and served for the entire community. But just come in. It's free food for everybody. So it'll be barbecue, beans, sides, vegetarian sides, all that kind of stuff. My band's called Critical Condition. We started up around the same time, about 6-7 months ago. And it seems that we're getting like a more or less kind of cool name going around in Houston and stuff. So I'm real happy about all that kind of stuff. But besides us that we're playing, Your Disorder's playing, and that's one of my favorite new young bands, young punk bands.
Yeah,
I always give a lot of shout out.
Zach, if you're listening, we love you.
I love you, Zach, guaranteed. Love his energy, love the entire band's energy. It's a great mix of stuff, but not just them. BC Binge is an amazing group. Got to give a shout out to Brianna and Nortney and all them. Whatever.
Electro, femme punk, right there.
DeFales, Demonic Hen.
DeFales are playing Demonic Hen. It's going to be a really awesome punk rock event. But the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I always see you doing free shows, like not even just this festival, but I don't know if I've ever seen a Critical Condition show that costs any money. And I wanted to ask, what, are you out of your mind? You don't care about money, or why do you do free shows as opposed to other people who, charge money?
Yeah, and I really thank you for asking that question too. I guess without getting too dragged off into the subject, all the shows at least that I tend to book is free solely because it's all a community based thing. I've realized, especially from my own personal experience, if a show's free, I'm more apt to show up, especially if it's a bunch of bands that I either don't know or they're local, stuff like that. I never understood the concept of paying for bands, whether it's to help. I understand helping out touring bands and obviously paying them for their time and stuff. But if you really expect me to charge someone $10, $7, $12 just so I could keep it in my pocket, that's downright ridiculous. You might as well pay for everything out of your pocket just so everyone can, experience you completely instead of experiencing you expecting a great show because they paid for it. But overall, the fact that people are starting to notice that my shows are free and Critical Condition is starting to do a lot of these free things, I want the community to start to understand that you don't have to make money to be successful, basically.
You can just do it for the love of it, and that's what a lot of people don't understand about punk rock and the kind of punk rock ethos. And I know there's a lot of people out there that appreciate you keeping that alive and making sure that us poor kids can come see some music too. So thank you so much, man. And is there anything you want to add?
I guess the last thing I want to add is we thank you very much for asking me to talk on here and just express a little bit about this kind of stuff that I like to do and everything. And once again, throwing the festival tomorrow, 4419 Navigation Boulevard, White Swan, home base, whatever you want to call it. Free food, free art, free merch for some people. Overall, just come out, come have a good time, especially if you've never been to a show before.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate you being on, and I will see you tomorrow at the White Swan.
All right, buddy boy. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Have a good one.
I know we got some Demonic Hen we're going to play at the half break. Right?
Yeah, we're going to be dropping some Demonic Hen and some Critical Condition a little bit later.
Nice. Both of which will be performing at the Vegan Fest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a busy weekend for shows, is it not?
It is a busy weekend.
What do you got on your schedule, Micah?
Man, I'm just looking here. I know I'm going to be out at the farmers market early. Daniel Oviedo, the vocalist and one of the guitarists for Devil Killing Moth, will be performing there.
Nice.
As well as, just that whole what our friend was talking about the community, people out there trying to do things, find ways to make ends meet and create products and bring them out to people. I could buy a candle at Target or I could buy a candle there. We got the holidays coming up, so I'm thinking I might try to spend my money where I live, rather than
recycle it back to the people who live here. Yeah. That's always nice.
I like those sort of things. I think that fest sounds good. I saw we had some other, and I was so glad that you were talking to him because I'd seen this vegan fest going through. If I was in Austin, I'd care about levitation a little bit more. But they got all kinds of things. We were talking earlier about the Suspects, Free Coasters, Wide Roots, and Fusca going to be over at White Swan. That's going to be an exciting show tonight.
White Swan's got a busy weekend ahead of him. It's going to be a lot of moshing over there.
Yeah, it's a great place. And she just had a birthday, Sally. So
really?
If you go out to any of these shows, make sure you tell Sally happy birthday.
Yeah, and they've been a venue that's long standing forever in Houston.
Yeah,
so
for sure. If you look on their Facebook page, you can see pictures of entirely different music than you might be used to hearing there, but like music back in the 1940s.
Like jazz and stuff, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of brass on those stages, and it looks pretty interesting. Maybe make you think of a ska show or something.
Yeah.
Texture Yellow's playing Darwin's tonight.
I was just going to bring that one up. Yeah,
nice.
Darwin's has Texture Yellow coming through, and I know their shows are always free.
I haven't heard of the other band with them, Movable Type, but they're playing as well. So
I assume Texture Yellow's got pretty good taste, so they're probably really good.
Too.
And I saw also that Secret Group is doing another comedy festival for those of you who are looking for a good laugh tonight.
That they are. Our former guest, Jonathan, sent over some messages about things that are coming up. And he'll be coming on here again probably, I think, on the 22nd to talk to us about some upcoming events. But it's great to have a vibrant city with so much going on, and we're really happy to be able to speak about this stuff and to have people on as guests. So don't fail if you want to reach out to us to message the Freethinker radio page. I see Holler Brewery's having an event going on, Hollapalooza 2. Goodness, so many little Roman numerals. And, it's going to be a great weekend. So what have you been getting into? Anything lately? I saw that big train came, Big Boy. It is a steam-powered locomotive. I was shocked by the number of people that came out in the rain, and it was like demographically diverse. I saw way more older gentlemen than I normally see, but I also saw a lot of kids and a lot of just everybody out there in the rain taking pictures of a big machine that was built back in 1941. So I guess it's a mobile museum, so that was going on, and
It's a mobile museum?
More or less.
So you can take a look at the train and everything?
Yeah, they have both the giant engine, the locomotive, which is a steam-powered locomotive. It's the only one of these that's running. They had 25 of them built back in the day, and this was during a time where most of your transcontinental travel was done by train. Like if you wanted to go to L.A., you'd probably take a train over driving or flying. And so it had the coach cars with it too, and I didn't wait through the lines to get on the coach cars, but this the immensity of it, and I read that it had 6,300 was capable of generating 6,300 horsepower and do a max speed of 70 miles an hour. So yeah, you think about driving L.A., this is kind of comparable way back in 1940 something, and these were the ones that were used to carry all that heavy duty freight all across the Midwest, which is a mass expanse of land. We tend to forget how big this country is in terms of just space. But yeah, it was interesting, and it's interesting to get into things that are just slightly outside what you might normally go to, because you do have your horizons expanded. 2 more events I want to speak about. Foam Hinge at Carbach, always a good time. Houston Fringe Festival is presenting Aqueous at Match Midtown. Zine Fest presents a cornucopious recipe zine potluck at the Montrose Center. So if you've supported Zine Fest, you want to get more into it, Sunday at 3 p.m., Sunday afternoon, you could go to the Montrose Center.
There's really no reason to be bored this weekend.
No, there's not, and it doesn't stop, but I think we have to stop to keep moving with events and to keep moving with the news. So, yeah. I will be glad when Derrick joins us in a little bit, but in the meantime, we do have other things to talk about. Let's see here. Oh, my goodness. We have new news in regard to the Tuttle raid, believe it or not, and this is out all over the news today, and I'm going to read some excerpts from the Texas Monitor. Investigators say is the homeowner killed in a drug raid was shot in the back. Wow. So some people dressed like you. Yeah. A forensics expert hired by relatives of a man shot in his home during a botched drug raid by Houston police in January determined he was shot in the back. This was reported in the Houston Chronicle. Investigator Mike Maloney said Wednesday that Dennis Tuttle was shot 3 or 4 times in the back during the raid, probably while retreating to the rear of his house on Harding Street in Houston after initially being shot by officers near the front of the home. Remember now, these officers were not coming in dressed like police officers. They were coming in dressed like plainclothes people with no body camera, nothing other than probably screaming and yelling and shooting. At least one shot traveled up his body, through his chest, and lodged in his head, probably inflicted while he was lying on the ground. Think about it. It turned in his body. This is what the investigator said, that, it probably happened while he was lying on the ground. Tuttle and his wife, Rosina Nicholas, were shot and killed by officers who raided the house looking for drugs. That sounds like a drug fiend. You're going to shoot some people up in their house looking for drugs. That's serious drug fiending right there.
Apparently, you can feel more entitled to do that if someone gave you a badge.
Well, badges don't grant extra rights. It's sad, but many will tell you that they do. But we'll see in the long run.
I mean, the craziest thing about that is that's just lies on every single level of that entire raid. There were shots fired from outside the house, and it was said that he was directly confronting them, not running away at any point. So a shot coming in the back doesn't make any sense from the police report.
Yeah. Officers entered the home without knocking, expecting to find a heroin den. They didn't. These people had lived there for 2 decades. Maloney initially released some of the findings back in July, and we discussed them here, that suggested police may have fired into the house without being able to see inside of it, and questioned if Tuttle ever fired back. Now, that's kind of frightening if you think about it, just randomly firing into a house. And this is not just some alternative media thing. This is all out through the mainstream today. So, this is happening here in Houston. This is what we're living with. He said Wednesday that his examination suggests that officers may have been at the doorway and were able to see inside the house when they fired the rounds that killed Tuttle. Attorney Mike Doyle, who is representing the Nicholas family as it plans a lawsuit, and guess who's going to pay for that? Probably the same people who paid for those bullets. Said the evidence uncovered by Maloney's contradicts what Houston police are reporting, and so did Johnny. So if you didn't know, there's every indication that the story they gave about what happened is not true. Maybe that's one of the things we all felt that next morning afterwards when, I felt like we were hearing news from the police union and from the police more than we were hearing from anyone else that morning after the raid.
I want to know where the apology is.
Yeah, well, that ain't going to happen.
That's something that I want to know is where
maybe one of these ones convicted, like one of these officers facing trial, will say something in court. That's the most you can hope for. Other than that, it'll just be taxpayer money going to the lawsuit, taxpayer money going to the jailing, taxpayer money going to the officers that were busy while they were on the clock shooting people. There's every indication that what the official story about what happened is not true. Everybody is ignoring what happened at the scene because they don't have this. Turns out the boss of the HPDs, Art Acevedo, would not comment due to the pending investigation, but the Houston police officers' president, Joe Gamaldi, said he believes what the police officers are saying, what the police investigators are saying. He says, I would trust the report from the Houston Forensic Science Center, the Texas Rangers, or the HPD, not a report from a private entity that is hired by future plaintiffs. He has a point there, We have to consider that this private investigation is being done by people that are going to be suing for lots of money.
That is true, but at least maybe...
But facts are facts, right?
At least it just brings up to light to at least have the conversation about it.
Yes.
To see the both sides of it, and we can decide for ourselves. The jury can decide, what makes more sense.
Well, the facts are that Officer Goin is accused of lying to get the warrant for the raid and was later charged with a felony murder in the case. His partner, Officer Bryant, faces a charge of tampering with a government record. So something needs to happen here, and I guess we'll continue to follow the story as it develops. But yeah, I do think it's interesting. And, when it's the state versus an individual or the city versus an individual and they can't get a fair shake, then they're stuck going and funding, a private investigation. And so anytime this happens, you can always have this counter, but all it is just something to throw out there. And yeah, we do want to stay critical. Thanks for pointing that out. We are already being critical, but at the same time, it's a good point as far as, just keeping aware of what's happening. So we got more stuff going on. Let's see. We did talk all about. We talked all about that. So yes, they say that the Houston police are launching a new expose hate campaign. I guess the hate crimes are just on the rise. That's at least what the boss of the Houston police, Art Acevedo, says. The department is teaming up with other groups to help encourage people to report hate crimes. I don't know. Have you been seeing more hate crimes out there? I don't know. Clear Channel Communications is joining the campaign with about 20 hashtag expose hate billboards around the Houston area. So you can see the public consciousness going to be more towards exposing hate, whatever that means.
What exactly is a hate crime, like for all the dummies out there like me? Like,
well,
because I know, obviously you're not.
Did you ever kill someone you loved? Would that be a hate crime?
Right. I mean, I don't know. I'm saying what makes something a hate crime?
This is interesting.
Just me purely being slightly ignorant. I am curious. Oh, Derrick's just walking in now. He probably knows the answer to the question.
Well, let's continue along here because that's a good one, and I'm gonna search that one right on up. I think it's it's a section of crimes that they can go and say, hey, if it was targeted against an identity. If it was, say, white nationalism and any race that was attacked, or if it was...
So it would have to do with violence, or it would have to... That's my question, I guess. Like, what's the crime
I don't think
part?
it is
so
limited to
type,
violence.
Like, if you steal... I don't know.
I'm going to have to look that
Derrick, what is a hate crime, Derrick?
Can you hear me here?
I can hear you.
You're here.
What's up, guys? Sorry I'm running late. Car
You're
trouble. Hate crime, as far as I know, they're typically... crimes, so let's say if I just beat you up, Johnny, that's assault, right?
But if you beat me up because you hate people that are
if I beat you up because I hate you because your skin color or because who you love or your sex, different things like that, it kind of goes into the whole identity.
What if you just hated him because of those things and you beat him up because he stole your car?
Well, that's probably just a regular old beat up.
I mean, that's my question is like, could it possibly be exploited by just like maybe two different races fighting, and then all of a sudden it's a hate crime, even though it had nothing to do with it?
So, from what I know, is it's essentially like, look, when somebody
that may not happen often. I'm just
say some like white nationalist, white supremacist, or just a racist in general, without a label, right? Beat up somebody because of their skin color. At some point, people decided that's worse than just beating somebody up in general, and so it should be charged as in a special crime, what we call a hate crime. He didn't just beat him up because he wanted to beat up some random person. He beat him up because of the color of his skin or because of his sexual orientation, et cetera, et cetera. And so it becomes a special class of like crimes. And I do think it may, legally you get more harsh punishment. So it just depends on whether or not you think.
It is a little bit worse. I do agree with that.
I mean, I don't know. Like, is it really worse, or is it just an assault? Like, we look at it and it's like
it could
example,
also be religion too.
Yeah, exactly. So your religion, sexual orientation, things of that sort. So think about this though. If you're watching two people across the street and you see somebody beating up somebody else, like, do you stop and think like, is that a hate crime or is that just a regular crime? You're just like, no, somebody's getting beat up, right? It's assault either way. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
It's kind of strange. Yeah. Let me keep going on this story a little bit more. I guess what's happening. So we're going to have all these billboards with the hashtag expose hate around because billboards need hashtags. That way, when you're at another billboard, you can just click on that hashtag and you can see where else it is. But the FBI says hate crimes are becoming more common, probably because they've only begun tracking hate crimes for a couple of decades now, but now enough people are reporting them. They're asking victims to call law enforcement if a crime is committed based on bias. The FBI says hate itself is not a crime. Hate, you can still hate. You're free to hate.
You're allowed to hate. You just can't. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is like it's illegal no matter what. To beat somebody.
So this is just layers on layers. This is trying to modify behavior like taxation on things that they want to deter. The Consul General of Mexico in Houston spoke at a press conference with Chief Art Acevedo, telling hate crime victims they can report the crime to the Mexican consulate if they're afraid to go to the police. Hey, we have a call.
All right, let's bring on a caller, see what they got to say. Who's online with us?
Hello, caller, you're live.
This is Steven.
What was your name again?
Steven.
Steven, how you doing? Steven, what's on your mind?
I'm doing all right. It's funny you guys are talking about how they want to expose hate and put it on billboards. The hate's already been exposed. It's done in our country. It's the President of the United States. Put his face on the billboard that it says expose hate and slap his face on the billboard. Who's gonna hold him accountable for all the hate crimes that he's producing? That's what I want to say. That's what I want to know.
Do you think hate existed before Donald Trump?
I believe it did, but I believe he encouraged it and he's promoting it.
Do you think hate existed under Obama?
Huh?
Do you think hate existed under Obama?
Hate's always been around, but I mean now it's if your president can do it, sure, why not? Anyone else, he's the leader of your country, and that's who you usually follow to some degree.
That's a mistake right there. That's the first mistake, following the president. Thank you for your call. We're going to go to the next caller. We have one more on the line. Who do we got with us now?
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
This is your buddy.
What's
I voted for you, Derrick.
It's Outlaw Dave.
Hey, I appreciate. I know I can finally talk about it. We'll get to talk about that hopefully by the end of the show. I appreciate that.
You got some votes. I'm not gonna say how many, but I ran a precinct. And I saw in our area we voted for you, man. So
thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Okay, so I think the narrative is to create a. You heard the term when the victim becomes the victimizer?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay. Well, during the turn of the century, this thing ADL was created, and these folks are really good at basically using this kind of situation to polarize the populace, meaning hate crimes in a sense like the KKK infiltrated by the FBI. Doing a lot of bad things during the 50s and 60s. It was called COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Mike about it last week about, how this was really a practice that was to incite riots.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and now we see at the point where it's a political thing where we can basically say, I stepped on this grapefruit wrong, and that's a hate crime. So when you get so polarizingly politically correct, you can use that narrative. So, when you kill somebody, and again, there is racism and all that, but
of course,
I say it's more of a narrative, Derrick, meaning it's a vehicle, it's a tool to basically take down anybody. If you have any opposition against the two-state, or not the two-state, but if you're against the genocide of people, like, say, in Palestine, you are contributing to a hate crime, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. I want to say one thing there, and then we're gonna wrap it up because we've got a couple more callers. Two things. First off, another group that you could fit in the same category was the Southern Poverty Law Center, which a lot of people reference.
And who was that?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other topic. But the other thing is
the ADL is encouraging people to use the hashtag expose hate.
So the ADL is directly involved with this one that we're talking about. The other thing is, I'm glad you said, just to be clear before we get some angry callers, yes, racism exists, yes, hate exists, and yes, there are idiots out there that do things like that. Yes. We're just talking about the way it's exploited, and we actually there's a book out there by Stephen Rabe. If anybody wants to check it out, R-A-B-E. I actually tried to interview him, but he's retired now, and he wrote a book about how down in British Guyana, which when it was owned by the Brits down there, that they used the unions and AFL-CIO and others to foment riots and stuff based on, and to spread this racism, basically to sow division. And it was through the CIA via the unions down there, as well as the British intelligence.
Anywhere there's a stream of collected people, right?
Yes.
So if it's the unions, or if it's the mob, or if it's like any of these things, that there's a stream of organized people. That's what they're after, is organizing people towards their goals.
Social engineering.
Not your goals.
And
but
I'm going to mention this to you, Micah, and your listeners. Please look up Gary Thomas Rowe, W-O-R-O-W-E, and he's the one that basically did all these incite riots that gave Lyndon Baines Johnson his civil liberties use case references. So
and he was never
a known practice, and it's very well plotted out. I'll leave you with this. It's okay, Derrick.
Go for it.
This guy named Jacob Sheff, he was a banker, and he wrote the Third Bank, the turn of the century. He also is the one who helped foster and create what's called the ADL. So back to that point, when the victim becomes the victimizer, where did this stop? I'll leave you off that.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah, we got to be careful not to swing from one extreme to the other. We got another caller on the line.
Bye.
Who's with us?
Hello, caller. Are you there?
Yes, this is Justine. Yes, sir. Isms, phobias, serfdom, servitude. Yes, I'm going back to yeomen and, different classes. All of those coincide. Like y'all said, it's a vehicle for a particular goal, whatever the goal may be. But here and again, that's human nature as well. However, a hate crime, when it's acted upon to oppress someone else, yes, we can even go down back to a tribal system. It is, in fact, yes, human nature. Again, it's wrong when it's acted upon, especially when you want to wipe out. However, is that human nature? Yes, some people have that black hole and soul in them. That's just how it is. So the people who do not have that type of soul or understand isms and phobias, have to be opposed to it. You have to find a balance, and you have to, promote something better than hurting, killing everyone that is human, mankind, no matter what class system, what wage gap, or color your skin is. That's all.
Absolutely. Thank you for your call and for your insight. We appreciate that. We got one more, Johnny? No? Okay, cool.
One thing is, she took it to the hate crimes again. I do think it's important to think about this because, there's aspects of this that we may not have thought of. And when Johnny asked, tell me what a hate crime is. Well, here the FBI says that these are some of the 4 main motivations. So, this is a motivation-based crime. So thrill-seeking, believe it or not. Perpetrators engage in hate crimes for excitement and drama. There is often no greater purpose behind the crimes, with victims being vulnerable because they have an ethnic, religious, sexual, or gender background that differs from their attackers. While the actual animosity present in such a crime can be quite low, thrill-seeking crimes were determined to often be dangerous, with 70% of the thrill-seeking hate crimes studied involving physical attacks. They probably ramp each other up to go attack one of these ones that's been holding us back forever, whatever that one might be, right?
That's messed up.
And I think historically, let's imagine going back a good while, something like lynchings, against black folks that people in different parts of Texas, even we don't have to go back that far.
Yeah.
James Byrd in Jasper, Texas, back in the early 2000s. So I guess it's the idea is this person is so motivated by their hatred of this person's race, sexual orientation, religion, etc., that in the eyes of the FBI and others, it rises to the occasion that there must be extra punishment. And think about this: say you were attacked by somebody and they came to you and they said, "Okay, well, look, we found the person. we're going to charge them with assault. But we also found out that they were motivated, so it goes to the motive. They were motivated to do this because they hate your religion, or because they assumed you were of this religion, or they assumed you were of this ethnic background or whatever. Now, do you want us to charge them with an extra, a heavier penalty because of that? Or would you rather just stick with the assault? I mean, I guess
it all depends what you think the purpose of punishment is.
Yeah, if the punishment is just like throw them in the jail, and I think the other lady, she did say something about people having a black hole in them. That to me gets a little closer to the root, because if somebody's out there just filled with hate to the point that they're going to pick up a weapon or their fist or whatever and just go assault somebody because they have a different skin color or language or religion or whatever, then they've probably got some deeper issues going on that need to be addressed. That's just my thoughts.
But on the flip side of that one, if it's like some kid, caught up in some group that goes and sprays their insignia and some hate insignia, whatever it might be, on somebody's property, and somehow now that property crime is worse against some 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid, then I'm a little bit more questionable if he really has a black hole in him.
You're right about that.
At that
because
point.
it's like a kid coming just like, for example, spray painting "rowdy" on the side of your house, and then they spray paint a swastika, right? And people are like, oh, that's a hate crime. So instead of it just being a graffiti crime, all of a sudden they're doing prison time or something like that.
Because we see the prison, the school to prison pipeline. We see this expansion of monitoring kids deeper and deeper down, so I don't know, but I just was trying to have different ways of looking at this for sure. Hey, Houston Police Union, they call on you not to speak out, but they also call in now for the firing of a prosecutor.
What's that about?
I'm trying to find out. They want John Denholm fired over a case in which the union alleges that he refused to file a sex assault charge because he suspected the victim was an illegal immigrant. The Harris County DA's office did not confirm or deny the alleged statements from Denholm in the case, but announced that he had resigned. So, in case you ever thought prosecutors...
So you're saying this was somebody who came here illegally without, didn't go through the proper procedure and then committed a crime, and then the prosecutor basically chose not to charge them?
Yeah. Someone here was a victim, and they were an illegal immigrant. We don't know, as far as the perpetrator, whether they were an illegal immigrant also or a citizen or, whatever. Either way, they're a criminal, right? Because they violated this person. But what's kind of wrong, or not kind of wrong, but what's wrong and what the police officers union was wanted him fired over was the fact that he refused to file a sex assault charge because he believed the victim was an illegal immigrant. Now, see, we're talking about hate crimes. Here's a person who wouldn't do their job.
Okay, so that's interesting because the one thing that we hear on the reverse side of that, Mike, I thought I heard it the other way. So you're saying the victim was the
yes.
a potential illegal immigrant? Cause,
so they're saying that technically they shouldn't be protected by our laws or something.
And that's what's so crazy about that, because on the flip side, the other side is if the person doing the wrong was an illegal, quote unquote, or somebody who came here illegally, everybody on the right wing would be throwing their hands up like, kick them out of the country, get them out of here. But then if somebody who maybe didn't fill out the proper paperwork gets assaulted, I definitely have seen response from some of those folks who said, well, their parents shouldn't have brought them here illegally then. They shouldn't there's no kind of remorse or sympathy
as if
for
it's
that.
not the same crime.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, it doesn't apply because they didn't have the right.
So
paperwork.
if the criminal in this aspect was an illegal immigrant, you'd have the typical look.
Throw them out.
Yeah, okay, but if they were a citizen, what's this saying? That this person was a prosecutor and thought it was okay for citizens to do whatever they wanted to illegal aliens?
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's still one person who's a violent person who could commit another crime out there without being charged or held accountable. Mike, I don't know if you guys have gone to any music, but I definitely want to share some things about the election. I don't want to take up the rest of
let's
our
get
time,
into it.
But if we got time to get into it, I'll get into it now.
Well, I got some short songs if you want to go.
Yeah, we probably let's do a break.
Let's play some Critical Condition.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll be back. This is Freethinker Radio. I'm Derrick Bros, Micah Jackson, and Johnny, and we're going to talk about the Houston election in just a second. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
That didn't sound like what I expected.
We'll be right back.
Yep, I'm sorry. Hang on one second, guys.
We're going to hear some good music,
Johnny.
though. It's worth the wait.
Hey, and if you want to support KPFT, you want to visit kpft.org, find out how you can support in different ways. You can listen to us every Friday, of course.
And Monday.
Okay, and this is Irresponsibility by Critical Condition.
Irresponsible It was at the age of 3. She tasted something sugary. Her third birthday cake was more than she could take. She got a sugar rush. You couldn't get her to hush. She wouldn't calm down till she passed out on the ground. Hot rocks and Kool-Aid, Dixie sticks and like a maid. Candy bars, cookies, cakes, how much sugar can a body take? Lollipops and snow cones won't leave her alone. One candy daydream make her wanna scream. She wants a sugar rush, you can't get her to hush. She never comes down till she's lying on the ground. She just grew up that way, eating sugar every day. Mornings full of frosted flakes, lunchbox filled with hostess cakes. Every day's her birthday, every night's a party. Doesn't take her for dessert, just stuffs herself until it hurts. She wants a sugar rush, you can't get her to hush. She needs it, can't you see? Sugar ever since the age of 3. Soda pop and red pop, or sticks and gumdrops. You could take her home for an ice cream cone. Give her your sugar, baby. You could be her sugar dad. She'll do anything for your sweet cream. She wants candy. She needs candy. She wants candy. She needs candy. She wants a sugar rush. You can't get her to hush. She said, can't you see? She wants a sugar baby.
Man, the KPFT.org website's pretty cool. Not only can you check out all the schedules so you can find other shows you might dig, like if you listened in just for the music today, you can find other music shows there, but also I like it because it says on air now, Freethinker Radio. Yeah, that's us. Yep, we're happy to be here. We're thankful to be here. We're thankful for the support, and we're thankful for all the callers voicing their opinions and talking to us about important issues, because I don't know any other station that you can do that with, and because of that, I got a special place in my heart for this station, and the fact that it lets us broadcast great music and hang out and talk about the news. I know Derrick's eager to talk about the mayoral race, so he's got to get a charger. I swear, technical difficulties. Says I've been looking around, and everybody's been talking about the economic situation for some time, and people are talking about the recovery, post the Great Recession, and we've been through. We keep an eye to it, especially when you got the central banksters, the Federal Reserve, doing their thing. It says just recently I was getting into some different news. It says the Fed is still faltering on inflation, and one official is calling for aggressive action. Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target has remained elusive for most of the expansion, and there are signs that it will remain so. New York Fed survey showed consumer inflation expectations at the lowest in the series' 6-year history. One of the things that I thought was interesting here is the Federal Reserve's more than decade-long quest to generate a healthy level of inflation continues to falter, even with the central bank's easing turn in 2019 that is targeted specifically at the issue. Not only has the Fed missed its 2% target for all of this year, but it now faces fading hopes that anything will change for it in the next several years. The expected inflation rate a year from now is 2.3%, and this is according to the New York Fed survey of consumer expectations. So got these things going on. October's reading represented a decline of 0.2 percentage points to 2.3, the lowest level ever in a survey that goes back to June of 2013. That's the 3-year expectation is for 2.4% inflation. So much for hitting their target of 2%. Anyway, we got a lot more Fed news going on, but I don't want to go too far down the Fed
That rabbit hole.
Yeah,
that is a huge rabbit hole.
It
Hey,
is.
Micah, throw out one of your favorite documentaries. Though we talk a lot about the Fed, and I know that there are listeners who maybe hear this and they, the financial stuff. Sometimes I think people glaze over if they're not familiar with it and the importance of it. What's a good primer on the Fed that you've come across? I know there's so many of them at this point.
I remember that disc we used to have that had 6 of them on it, and of course, there's that entry level one or whatever you want to say with Rousseau.
From Freedom to Fascism.
Freedom to Fascism. That one, that's like 2 movies in one, really.
Yeah, it's a really deep one.
But then there's ones like The Fiat Empire. That one's pretty interesting. And then there's the cartoon.
The American Dream.
The American Dream. There's all kinds of different ways to approach it, and I guess it depends on which aspect is most interesting. But I think those 3 are the most powerful ones as far as indictments of the Fed and getting people involved in wondering what the Federal Reserve is. The name on that piece of paper that they say is worth X amount of your life, and we, obviously we want to be able to store the fruits of our labor. So money is a tool that's been around for a long time. But what about this particular money that we use? The Federal Reserve note. If you notice, it's on all the money.
And kind of what happens whenever the controlling and the creation of that money is under the control of essentially private banks.
Yeah, for sure. I've got this one that I just found immensely interesting, but I think we'll go a little long on it. You can read it yourself if we don't get all into it. This is a different article. The last one I was coming through CNBC. This one's coming from the Motley Fool, and it's really interesting. Even the headline should get you. The Federal Reserve may not be able to save the stock market when the next recession strikes. And basically, this guy lays out the math for it, that they will only have half as far to go because of the limited amounts of increases that they've done. They have less room to go down till they hit 0. So they have like 500 points, but they're at 2.5, so they can only go half the distance. So that they would not be able to do as much bailing out when the next recession, they always put the Band-Aid on it, right? So it looks like what if that's a pattern now? What if each time it takes longer to get the interest rate back up to where they can start capitalizing enough to drop it when the recessions hit?
The Band-Aid's having less of an effect, basically.
Yeah. So the bubbles are still getting blown up and popping, but all those Band-Aids over the bubble popping, the air is still leaking out, and
there's too much going on to contain it.
There's blood everywhere.
Yeah.
One other one I'll throw your way, and then I'd like to share a little bit about my experience with this election, and just I think that could be useful to our listeners, is called The Century of Enslavement, and it's by a channel called The Corbett Report. James Corbett. You can find it on YouTube, but I'll tell you this. You go on, Mike, I don't know if you noticed this. You go on YouTube and you search Federal Reserve. All you get is the Federal Reserve's YouTube channel, CNBC, MSN. You got to do some pretty deep scrolling to get to the documentaries that we're talking about.
You have to know about the documentary to find
and
it.
even if you search them by the name, like if you literally go right now and search
that used to not
Century
be the
of
case.
Enslavement, Federal Reserve, it will, instead of taking you straight to the channel that created that documentary, you still will have to go scroll down to find it, because these days,
buried.
And this is a whole maybe topic for next week, but the age of the Wild West Internet has been over for quite some time, for those who don't realize it. And to that point,
don't.
I've noticed that a lot of people don't. And one of the ways that this is showcasing and kind of playing out is in elections. So we just had, the mayoral, the local election just this past Tuesday. And I've been on the show for the last few months while I've been campaigning. Those of you who didn't know, I was campaigning for mayor. And just to be clear, there's no FCC violation to be campaigning and owning.
It sounds
having a radio
profane,
show.
Though. It sounds like profanity.
But it is KPFT policy where we don't talk about it just because we don't want to give any unfair advantage, things of that sort.
Oh.
So I've kept my campaign out of the show, but I do think that there are some lessons that can be gleaned for our audience. And one, what we were just talking about, the Wild West of the Internet is over, right? Searching information, finding information, especially if you're relying on Google, if you're relying on Facebook, if you're relying on YouTube, you are in a filter bubble. And there's a lot of talk about how Facebook and the Russians may have interfered with the 2016 election. And we've had some of that on just a local level, but just to kind of summarize a little bit.
Russians hacked the mayoral debate.
If you haven't known about my campaign, I do want to recommend checking out Derrick.
That's why you weren't included.
It could be the
They
Russians.
They hated all ideas.
It could be the Russians. It could be something else. But at the end of the day, Facebook and these tools and the local media play a big part. And this is a really important message. So I want you guys to understand this, because
serious.
I think,
aren't we the local media?
We are a part of that, but we're a part of the independent media, even though we're on the FM radio, because what you
That's
hear
pretty
on our
cool.
show, especially, for example, last week we're talking about finders, we're talking about Epstein, Micah talks about Federal Reserve. I guarantee you, even on other stations that claim to be independent media on the airwaves, maybe a couple that are just 2 or 3 spots down the dial, I won't name any, you aren't going to hear this. There's not corporate-free, radio. There's other stations, they've got sponsors, big oil sponsors and big, local metro
They don't play the
sponsors.
same cool music either.
And they're not playing independent music. They're not giving independent thinking. And they're definitely not letting you call in and say whatever you want. So,
Talk about your events.
to that point, I want to recommend if you would like to know about my campaign, although it's over, obviously I didn't make the runoff for those who have heard. Mayor Turner will face Tony Busby in the runoff on December 15th, which is, I think, very sad for the city to have those choices. Feels like Donald Trump and Hillary choose between which one makes you feel a little less
violated.
Yeah, but it's not a good choice either way. But I chose to run because all of the issues that you've heard me, Micah, and Johnny talk about on Freethinker Radio for the last years and since we've been on KPFT, surveillance, 5G, community gardens, environment, corruption, all these things were essentially cannabis, ending the drug war, ending mass incarceration. All of these things were a part of the campaign that I was running. And as I said, even though it's over, if you want to find out more about it, visit DerrickBros.com. I'll leave all that, for you to find on your own. But what I want to share with you is that if you don't realize how controlled the local media is and the local political scene is, I think it's important for you because I haven't been able to say this every week when I've been getting screwed over in one way or the other. I was interviewed, and I'm going to call him out publicly. Greg Grugan is a quote-unquote journalist on Fox 26, and he interviewed me. He called me into the studio to be interviewed as a mayoral candidate. It was all nice and good. We sat down for 20 minutes. We did our interview. We took selfies together. We smiled. We posted about it. And he said, oh, sure, it'll be on TV in the coming week. A week passes, nothing airs. 2 weeks passes, nothing airs. I start to get the picture that I've seen before, and I decided to call the station manager, the Fox News station manager here in Houston, and her name is Susan Schiller. She was put in place as the head of Fox News 26 here. She told me they were going to figure it out. That went on for another week, another 2. I ran into Greg Grugan and said, hey, man, what's going on? He told me, Fox 26, we're low on resources. We're trying to figure out if we can edit it. Meanwhile, in between me being interviewed by him, and a month passing, he interviewed Busby, he interviewed King, he interviewed Boykins, he interviewed Sue Lovell. They had no problem editing those videos.
Oh, no, they just spoke such golden words. They didn't have to edit them.
Then, when it finally came down to it, on the Houston Millennials Forum, which was at Rice University, which, by the way, myself and the other 2 millennials were excluded from. It was only the candidates who are 51 years and older included in that. I went to Mr. Grugan. I said, Greg, what is going on, man? You are a journalist. I looked up your history. You've got degrees. You've got Lone Star Emmy Awards. And I'm just a street-trained journalist, and I'm having to tell you how to do your job. Because the thing is, it's not that I'm sitting here crying like, oh, give me an interview. The law, if we're going to have any kind of law, look, I don't like the FCC. I don't like that they regulate the airwaves. But
we don't cuss because of it, though.
The fact of the matter is that the FCC says there's equal time in local elections. If they give one candidate time, then if the candidate reaches out and says, hey, I'm also a candidate, you are required to give me time, that's what they must do. So, for example, when we interviewed Amanda Wolf here on the show, if one of the other city council candidates had reached out and said, hey, guys, I saw you interviewed her, can I get my share? And we would happily bring them on. So I let Greg Grugan know this. I said, look, man, this is not about whatever you think about me or what I may have said. You are required by law to do this. And his response to me was, get a lawyer.
Why do you think that law's there? Maybe so
because
we can hear the ideas?
Because of this kind of thing happening. So he told me, though, get a lawyer, do whatever you have to do. We're not playing it. You're not going to pressure me into playing it. Get over it. I mean, this is what I was told to my face by this man. And I told him, you know what, Greg? At some point in your past,
we're not friends anymore.
You may have been a real journalist because apparently you got awards. But at some point you got off the path, and now whatever you are, you're far from a journalist. He didn't like that, and he said, you need to get out of my face. You need to get out of my face. And I let him know, like, look, as long as I'm an independent journalist here in Houston, as long as we're on the radio, everywhere I go, if I see Greg Grugan, I will be calling him out. Not because I took it personal about my campaign, but what happens if this happens to another candidate who doesn't have the resources?
You expect more from him.
I expect him to act, I don't know, do his job. Do his job. I mean, that's all that we ask, right? Yeah. So I had that with Fox 26. I had other stations interview me and then accidentally lose the interviews. I had stations interview me and say, oh, well, our schedule was messed up. We didn't get to air it on TV, but we put it on the website. And that's all well and good, but how many different viewers and listeners and, in the end, votes were lost or missed because of these funny games? And at the same time, local groups, Republican this, Democratic this, excluded candidates. And I'll tell you more about this next week. I know I got here late and we're wrapping up in time, but my point here is, one other thing. 10 days before the election, Facebook banned my mayoral page from posting for a week.
That's because you
without
revealed
explanation.
The truth.
And it was, I mean, I don't know if it's directly, but this came at the exact moment that I shared a video of me at one of the forums over in Fort Bend saying that government and media are organized crime. As soon as I shared that, I was banned for 10 days.
Well, you pointed out not just what everyone knows on the national and international level, that truth, but that could be happening right here.
But that it's your neighborhood reporter that's up to the same thing.
Why don't you go into that? How is that organized crime? Like, what did you have to say that would have potentially got you banned?
The question was about taxes and budgeting. Actually, it was something we've covered here, and it was basically the candidates were saying, okay, so here's the thing, real quickly. In the city of Houston, if you sign a contract and it's under $50,000, the city council doesn't have to approve it. So what we've noticed is the mayor is getting a lot of these big companies to sign multiple contracts and keep it under $50,000.
$49,999.
Exactly. So then he has to approve it, and the city council doesn't have to approve it. But that can be $50,000, 100 times, and resulting in millions and millions of dollars. And so I was basically answering a question in response to that and saying, like, look, of course the government's going to tell you, oh, we're too busy. It's too difficult to tell you where the money's going. Because they want to take money from you, and they never want to tell you where it's going. And so I just basically said, look, the fact is I've faced censorship, I've faced pushback, and it's because we have to accept from the national down to the local level, government and media are organized crime. And you know what? We got some, and we got a lot of applause. And that video was going viral on Facebook. It was going viral on YouTube. But then when we shared it again, it got me banned. And I'll tell you this right now, my page was banned again yesterday, on Wednesday. So I'm banned one more time after the election. And I think it's not because I'm influencing the race, but because the things we're talking about, the issues we're bringing, I think there are powerful people in this city who don't want them to be discussed. And we didn't get a whole lot of votes. I'm thankful for the 694 votes I got, and I appreciate that.
I thought you had 900 something.
I don't know what it was at the end, but all I know is it was less than I might have expected. But also, I didn't get into it for votes. That's what I have to remind myself. It was about changing the conversation, and I think we succeeded in doing that. We're out of time, though. I'll talk more about this next week. That looks awesome. And I'll remind you guys, if you haven't checked out our Facebook page, Micah was just showing us that we got an awesome new banner. It's facebook.com/freethinkerradio. And also, we're going to revamp the Houston Freethinkers website, houstonfreethinkers.com. It's going to be your place to find out more about me, Micah, and Johnny, and everything you need to know about the show. And we'll see you on Monday and next Friday. Till then,